I woke up today to the headline that Trump had called for a firing squad for Liz Cheney. And this is what I really don't like about the media. No, he didn't.
He did not.
You don't have to move me to not like Donald Trump.
He says
more
so
than
many
I
shitty things. Why do you...
I don't think you even need to call it fired upon. He's saying quite explicitly and unambiguously that Liz Cheney should be shot, should be executed by firing squad. That is appalling. It is a small facet of the reasons why he's unfit for office, and the Republican Party has made a disastrous mistake renominating him. All that said, since we're here for the punditry, I don't know what this gets him, right? If his problem is freaking out suburban women who don't like the chaos, don't like the violent rhetoric and all that kind of stuff, that's just not a great closing argument. Let's execute a political opponent who happens to be a woman because I don't like her. And like, does that pull more low propensity voters in his coalition to the polls? I honestly don't think so.
And I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person.
The Kamala campaign is sweating right now, guys, and they're not about to let this opportunity slip by their fingers. They've used Trump's words against him multiple times, and all of them have had the context removed for their benefit. Hearing the full clip, we understand what Donald Trump is trying to say. You see, he doesn't talk to us like we're toddlers. He believes that we have the capacity to understand what he's trying to say without misunderstanding his intent. He respects the intellect of American voters. Meanwhile, we got the left who continues to lie through their teeth. And I want you guys to stay tuned because even some of the most left-leaning journalists are blasting Kamala Harris's team for going off regarding this comment. Common sense and logic tells us that Trump is saying something very important here. It's easy for Dick and Liz Cheney to say that we're going to war, for them to say that we're going to send thousands of our troops to enemy territory. And they can do all of that from the comfort of Washington, D.C., without them ever being in danger or threatened by enemy fire. Now, how would they say the same thing if it was them who had to go to war themselves? And that's all that Donald Trump is saying. I feel disappointed that it's up to us to have to explain it to these folks, because Trump doesn't see the merit in waging war with any country, especially after what happened with Afghanistan and even Iraq. Americans lost their lives. This is obviously something that he's not in favor of. Mainstream media is taking advantage of this by making us believe that the former president is calling for Liz Cheney to be attacked. They even have Arizona's attorney general talking about it.
Well, the first thing I would say, Bram, is it is, just outrageous that Donald Trump would come to Arizona and make statements like that that are clearly, at least appear to be threatening and harassing and intimidating. And I'll be clear with you, I have already asked my criminal division chiefs to start looking at that statement, analyzing it for whether it qualifies as a death threat under Arizona's laws. So I'm not prepared now to say whether it was or it wasn't, but it is not helpful as we prepare for our election and as we try to make sure that we keep the peace.
So they can call Trump a threat to democracy and someone that needs to be shot at. But the minute he says something that's obviously being taken out of context, he's investigated. I mean, the bias is just overwhelming at this point. They've had this violent rhetoric against Donald Trump for years, and none of them have been investigated for what they've said. In fact, they called his MSG rally as a hate rally, comparing them to Nazis, saying that Trump is Hitler and a dictator. It's like they don't even listen to what they're saying against him as well. They're tone deaf because the only way that they can think of beating him is by making him something that he's not, and that this rule only applies to Donald Trump. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, all these Democrats, they cannot be held under the same scrutiny, that the lies are all warranted since it's Trump. But here comes Bill Maher to destroy this idea. Watch.
I woke up today to the headline that Trump had called for a firing squad for Liz Cheney. And this is what I really don't like about the media. No, he didn't.
He did not.
You don't have to move me to not like Donald Trump.
He says
more
so
than
many
I
shitty
already,
things. Why do you have to
And
do
by
that?
the way,
Yeah.
if Pete don't realize it, well, here's what he said. He's criticizing him for being a war hawk. I mean, she is Dick Cheney's daughter. He said, She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay. Let's see how she feels about it. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, we'll send tens of thousands of troops right into the mouth of the enemy. Now, of course, he expresses himself horribly. He has to add she's a stupid person because he's a moron.
Well, Trump knows what it's really like from Vietnam.
Okay. But, just to be clear, this is exactly what hippies always said. This is exactly what peaceniks always said. This is Fortunate Son, the song. It's like, you know what? It's very easy to sit in your building and send young men to die. Apropos of Ukraine,
Yes.
because, I don't know, that war doesn't look like it's going in the right direction.
Not at all, no.
But just so, you know, just don't lie to me. I don't like Donald Trump. Don't lie to me and tell me he wants it in front of a firing squad. He was saying something that, by the way, if it came out of the mouth, some of it, not the stupid part, again, sounds like what hippies used to say about
Bill,
not sending people to, yes.
I agree with you on the lying. I mean, that is ridiculous and absurd and counterproductive. But when did Donald Trump ever criticize a war hawk the way a hippie did? I mean, was it during Vietnam? He got out of going to Vietnam, but he didn't criticize
I'm not
the war
going
or
to
the Iraq
defend,
war.
Jamie,
Yeah.
I'm not defending Trump.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, don't lie to me.
I agree with that. I mean, that's just a distortion.
It's
but read what he really said.
It's counterproductive. I mean, the number of Trump people you talk to who talk about the media and giving them any ammunition like this. I mean, I saw headlines, chyrons on television this morning saying that Donald Trump had said that Kamala Harris should be executed. I mean, at the beginning of that kind of rambling, incoherent thing, she said, give her a weapon, which is not typically something you do to someone.
And again, the
executed.
spirit of it
Right?
is something that if someone with the blue hat said it, people would nod along on the left. Yes, exactly.
Maher doesn't like Trump at all, but even he's sick of the lies that continue to flow from mainstream media. And he's right. If a Democrat said this about Trump, all of those within the left would nod along and say that it's a good idea. And just to prove that, I want you guys to watch this clip of Scott Jennings winning a 3v1 on CNN. Watch.
This week marks a huge mistake for Donald Trump in a community within the Latino world that he desperately needs.
Yeah,
Would you say that as far as surrogates go this week, it was a bigger problem for a comedian that most people have never heard of? Or was it a bigger problem for Joe Biden as a surrogate to call half the country garbage? Or even a bigger problem today for Mark Cuban to insult women voters who are thinking of voting Republican? Of those 3 surrogate issues, which would you say, Biden and Cuban, or this guy, I can't even remember his name?
The one difference in that is the reaction to it. I see your point, Scott, and we obviously talked about Biden's remark here. We're going to talk about Mark Cuban's comment in a moment. But Biden came out immediately to clarify that. Mark Cuban came out today to talk about his. Donald Trump has just claimed he didn't know who the comedian was at his
I'm sure
rally.
he doesn't, A, and B,
But he's still at his rally.
the
You have
campaign
responsibility
had a
for that.
statement out
The
before
campaign isn't the
Donald
candidate.
Trump ever even took the stage. They
No,
dealt with
that
it
statement
immediately.
came out after the rally was over. I know because I was at Madison Square Garden for 8 hours on Sunday.
Again, the campaign is not the candidate. The candidate could have
Is it
persuaded
not?
and spoken against this,
then you
and he has
agree,
not.
Then you must agree that it's been kind of weird for the Kamala Harris's campaign through anonymous statements from staffers to change all of her positions on every issue then?
Wait, Scott, just come back
she
to
has
this.
not changed
You
her
had a
position
guy
on
on the
Yes,
stage
she
at
did.
Madison Square Garden, the most prominent arena in the country, insult the Puerto Rican people.
Joe Biden insulted half the country.
Excuse
Mark
me, just-
Cuban insulted
but
half.
that's a great
the other half of the
redirection.
country.
I want to ask you this.
Are there more
He
Puerto Ricans or
insulted-
more women?
he
Joe Biden's
insulted
also
the
not
Puerto Rican
running.
people. And
Neither is this
Trump,
comedian.
Trump took a pass on it.
I'm sorry,
Now, you're a former campaign manager. You would never let that happen, would you? Would you?
Look, number one, this pre-program was not helpful. I have said that numerous times. Number two, the fact that you all want to turn this campaign into something about an idiot comedian and want to ignore the clear bumbling stupidity of the president and Mark Cuban, to me, speaks
No, we're
volumes
on
about
that
him.
Donald Trump.
So what do you guys think? Do the same rules apply to Democrats when it comes to mainstream media? Because they certainly don't have much of a problem lying about Trump. In the same light, they're also very much open to defending President Joe Biden and any of Kamala Harris's surrogates regarding their own statements. You know, what's crazy is I used to think I could do it on my own, all by myself. But after years of spinning my wheels, I realized something was missing. It wasn't more hustle or more effort. It was the right people. Then all of a sudden, one day, I connected with somebody who had already achieved the success that I was actually striving for. And suddenly, everything changed. That's the power of your network. Inside the Life Pursuit Network, you'll find people who have been exactly where you are now and have risen to the top. They've already learned lessons and they've paved the way, and now they're ready to help you do the same. Join us right now. Click the link down below and unlock the potential of a powerful network of people that can change your life. But act fast because spots are limited. ABC is cheating for the Democrat machine. Their license should be revoked. Another person added, if the same graphics pop up after November 5th with the same percentage and the same vote count, it'll be extremely suspicious. And the media wonders why nobody trusts them. Remember guys, this is Disney-owned ABC that we're talking about here. Remember the presidential debate on September 10th? Critics had to call out the moderators David Muir and Lindsey Davis of bias in favor of Kamala Harris. Conservative commentators also claim that the moderators continued to fact-check Donald Trump while they left Kamala Harris alone. 5 or 6 times they fact-checked former President Donald Trump and disrupted his momentum. Kamala Harris? Oh, a big fat zero, even though there was plenty to fact-check from the vice president. Oh, and let's not forget the very close relationship between Kamala Harris and Disney executive Dana Walden, who is running to become the company's CEO. They are sorority sisters. Walden has also tried to hide the relationship and distance herself from the news division of the Mouse House, but there's no erasing the history of political donations and fundraising efforts for Kamala Harris. Now, put that together with the news and the debate. Coincidence? I don't think so. But I'm gonna let you guys answer that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Do you think liberal media is preparing to rig this election? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments down below and hit the like button to show your support. Now, speaking of support, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, guys. That way you can keep up with the latest updates straight to you guys, straight to your phones, straight to your TVs, tablets, laptops, whatever. It's win-win and it's totally free. Now, another suspicious authority figure that we really need to watch out for, the FBI. Now, according to New York Representative Elise Stefanik, the FBI is covering up Iranian election interference to tip the scales for Democrats. Now, at this point, the Congresswoman sees the federal agency as functioning like an arm of the Democratic Party. Her reasoning? Well, the FBI has been stonewalling what she called very basic, easy questions about the Bureau's knowledge of the Iran-linked hack of the Donald Trump campaign, in which data was then peddled to the Biden campaign and mainstream media news outlets. So according to Stefanik, there was politicization from the Biden-Kamala Harris administration that they were notified prior to the Trump campaign to tip the scales. Now, this was during the summer in August when the Trump campaign claimed it was hacked by Iran. In September, the Department of Justice confirmed that Iran had hacked the campaign and indicted 3 Iranian nationals for their alleged role in the scheme. Mid-September, the FBI conducted a closed briefing with Stefanik and other members of the Intelligence Committee on foreign election interference. Now, during this briefing, Stefanik said FBI officials appeared panicked when she asked them, but promised to follow up with answers. After the briefing, Stefanik wrote to FBI Director Christopher Wray demanding answers by October 7th. The FBI then said that it would deliver answers at an in-person briefing, according to Stefanik. Then they promised written answers, which never came. So really, guys, what are they hiding? Or a better question may be, who are they protecting? Because these were pretty simple questions for Stefanik. The Congresswoman wanted to know when and how the FBI learned of the Iranian hack of Donald Trump's campaign, when the FBI notified both campaigns of the hack, and whether the FBI knew who was responsible for peddling the information to the media and the Biden-Harris campaigns, and whether the FBI had used Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act to wiretap conversations related to the hack. But did she get answers from the FBI? Nope. Which seems to be their ongoing protocol when it comes to threats against former President Donald Trump. As Stefanik herself commented, when the FBI won't answer questions, it's because you've hit on something and they're hiding something. They're corrupt to the core. Then, of course, there's the whole Trump witch hunt led by special counsel Jack Smith. Seriously, guys, Smith can't help himself from inserting his election interference case into the news cycle. The most recent development, additional documents that were made public. Now, according to this, the hundreds of pages of documents are Smith's appendix of exhibits in the fight over whether Donald Trump had a level of presidential immunity that negates the charges against him. Well, it all barely amounted to a splash in the headlines. As Trump campaign spokesman Steve Chang described it, radical Democrats are hell-bent on interfering in the presidential election on behalf of lying Kamala Harris. They just can't get over the fact that Donald Trump is dominating this race, and crazed liberals throughout the deep state, they're freaking out. Chang also didn't miss a chance to slam the whole Jack Smith case against Donald Trump, especially with the Supreme Court's historic decision on presidential immunity and other vital jurisprudence. He called the entire case a sham and a partisan, unconstitutional witch hunt that should be dismissed entirely, as should all of the remaining Democrat hoaxes.
We're also getting reaction now from the Trump campaign on this release of the special counsel Jack Smith's unsealed filing right now. This is Stephen Chung, the Trump campaign spokesman, saying that the release of the falsehood-ridden, unconstitutional J6, referring to January 6th brief immediately following Tim Walz's disastrous debate performance, is another obvious attempt by the Harris-Biden regime to undermine American democracy and interfere in this election. Deranged Jack Smith, again quoting from the spokesman in Washington, D.C., radical Democrats are hell-bent on weaponizing the Justice Department in an attempt to cling to power. President Trump is dominating, and the radical Democrats throughout the deep state are freaking out. The entire case is a partisan, unconstitutional witch hunt that should be dismissed entirely, together with all of the remaining Democrat hoaxes. This again from a Trump campaign spokesman. Of course, all of this back and forth on redacted material that has now been made public from Jack Smith's investigation, born of a Supreme Court decision that said essentially actions by a president in office, you can't touch them. He is untouchable for that. It's not that black and white. Katie Chakowski here to remind me it's not that black and white, but good to go to a lawyer who knows these things than certainly an anchor reporting on these things. So, Katie, what do you make of this? A whole 165 pages out here. We get some interesting revelations, but anything new or anything that changes anything for you?
Well, I think there's really no question that this is Jack Smith's only real opportunity to try this case in the eyes of the public before the election. And that explains this robust factual section rehashing all of these things about January 6th and the aftermath that pertain to this indictment. But at the end of the day, the immunity decisions about where the line is drawn for what conduct and what evidence can be used in the prosecution of a former president is still highly unprecedented. We have the initial ruling from the Supreme Court. This is the government's first attempt to argue why their indictment as amended should stand. The defense will have a chance to respond to that. And then ultimately, the judge will make a ruling. And that ruling, if it's not favorable to the defense, is immediately appealable before this case would ever make it to a trial. So this is just a last-ditch effort, in my opinion, by Jack Smith to get these facts back in front of the American people.
Seriously, guys, they're getting desperate. And as we all know, desperate people are dangerous people. So we got to be vigilant out here. We got to do our part to keep former President Donald Trump and our country safe. You know what I mean, guys? Let's start with our own update and breakdown right here. So really, first on the list is this ABC news station airing what looked like official election results for Pennsylvania that showed Kamala Harris easily winning the key swing state more than a week before Election Day. Here's the picture. And this result popped up at the bottom of the screen during the Sunday broadcast of the Formula One Mexico Grand Prix by ABC local affiliate WNEP TV, which, by the way, serves the northern part of the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. And as you guys can see, it clearly shows the vice president getting 52% of the votes compared to 47% of the votes for Republican challenger Donald Trump, with 100% of the precincts reporting. Now, again, this was more than a week before the election. And just to be clear, guys, Pennsylvania law does not allow mail-in ballots to be taken out of their envelopes until 7 a.m. on Election Day, and no votes of any kind will be counted in Pennsylvania until after the polls close at 8 p.m. Sure enough, the American people caught on very quickly, and the whole issue caused an uproar. One user posted on X, "The cheat is on." In their defense, the ABC station WNEP TV said that the results came up on the screen in error, as they say, and that they had been randomly generated as a part of a test ahead of the November 5th election. But they do admit that those numbers should not have appeared on the screen, and it was an error by WNEP that they did. Now, according to them, the numbers seen on the screen were randomly generated test results sent out to help news organizations make sure their equipment is working properly in advance of election night. Now, randomly generated? Sure, okay. Well, at the very least, they're owning up to their own mistake for once. But let me ask you guys, of all of the states for them to be broadcasting this test, why did it have to be Pennsylvania, the state that both parties are fighting tooth and nail for? Also the state where Donald Trump is up by a razor-thin margin of 0.7% in Pennsylvania, garnering 48.2% to Kamala Harris's 47.5%, which kind of reminds me of a previous live stream where I talked about CNN melting down over a guest agreeing with former President Donald Trump. And the worst part for them is that he's right. Make sure you guys watch this video coming up right after this, because I don't think CNN wants anyone else to see it. Now, as always, I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks so much for keeping yourselves informed. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. Check out this video here next, and I'll see you guys on the next one.